This program is brought to you commercial-free by the Marathon Refinery.
Showing circulation on radar.
This is a special presentation after the storm.
Thank you for joining us as we remember the tornado that hit the Wabash Valley 1 year ago. I'm Dana Winklepleck. I'm here at the south end of Sullivan, this area devastated by the tornado that went from Crawford County, Illinois, over into Indiana. Now, Mike Tank and Nicole Christine, they're going to join us very soon from Crawford County. And over the next half hour, you're going to hear stories of resilience as communities came together to rebuild. We've also learned a whole lot about that tornado that hit that night. Dan Reynolds, he went to the National Weather Service both in Lincoln and up in Indianapolis, and now he shares what he learned about the tornado.
3 days before the tornado hit, the Storm Prediction Center and National Weather Service offices in Lincoln and Indianapolis were communicating with each other. More meteorologists were scheduled, duties assigned, and media and emergency managers warned of the threat.
Well, we had about almost 3 days of heads up when SPC was starting to circle areas that were going to be potentially hazardous weather, high impact potentially.
Eventually, parts of central Illinois were placed in the high-risk category, the first time in 10 years for the designation. The tornado watch was issued at 7:01 p.m. Central. Meteorologist Mike Albano was manning the radar that night at NWS Lincoln. The tornado warning was issued at 8:17 Central for Clay County, Illinois, then began moving northeast. The fast-spinning tornado was upgraded to considerable in warnings being issued. At about 9 Central, radar data confirmed a tornado.
We had considered upgrading the considerable tornado warning to a tornado emergency. It was lifting into Crawford County. It was headed right for the county seat there in Robinson.
Residents had 14 minutes lead time. The tornado grew into a long-track high-end EF3, about as high-end EF3 as they come. Then, radar began picking up damage.
And right down here, right where the deeper red shades go, that is the debris ball.
Albano is 6 years into his career, all at NWS Lincoln.
This is the strongest storm I've seen on radar.
As the tornado approached the border, NWS Indy took over.
And we actually called the emergency manager of Sullivan County that evening, I should say, before the storm got there, to make him aware of the seriousness of the situation.
Sullivan residents had 20 to 22 minutes lead time to take shelter. Sam Lashley is the warning coordination meteorologist for NWS Indy.
This is a very strong signature. This is the type of signature you see out in the plains.
The debris ball grew bigger.
Now it's going through Sullivan.
Both Lincoln and Indianapolis provided warnings well ahead of the tornado hitting, but not everyone heard those warnings. Some were asleep, some didn't have a weather radio, or didn't hear the cell phone warning. Loved ones were lost, many were injured, and homes and possessions destroyed. The south side of Sullivan wiped out. The death and destruction affected meteorologists too.
All that we could think of is, I hope these folks take shelter.
We're changed almost on the inside after something like that happens, especially when you go out and see the damage the next day. It really hits home.
I've been doing this 30 years, and you get a pit in your stomach before the event ever happens because you know what's going to happen.
But the knowledge and experience of these meteorologists acting with urgency also saved lives that night.
Several people had their mobile home destroyed completely. And they said, we left about 2 minutes before this mobile home got sheared in half.
The morning after the tornado, I walked this neighborhood filming the devastation, and I ran across Calvin Cox. He agreed to let me interview him. He and his wife, Kathy, had lost their home. Still to this day, I get asked about how is Calvin doing, and I'm happy to report really, really well. You're looking at a man who keeps rising to the occasion, overcoming what Mother Nature and later a broken hip have thrown his way. A man who thought the only luck he was having was bad luck.
I thought, man, it's falling blowing all over me.
I first met Calvin on the morning of April 1st, 2023. He was looking at the damage an EF4 tornado had done to his home the night before.
We went to sleep and heard something sound like a train coming over, and when it did, she said, "Get up." And about that time, a piece of glass or window flew out and smacked me in the head. And
Calvin and his wife Kathy had no insurance on the house, and if that was not bad enough, a few days later, Calvin fell and broke a hip while moving his few remaining possessions into storage. I visited Calvin in the hospital, and things were already starting to look up. While there, he and his wife showed me house plans and said the owner of Yoder Construction promised to build the exterior for free. In June, we spoke to Calvin and Kathy again as construction on that new house started.
He said it was God put it on his heart to help us.
Well, that's a wonderful man. Something like that, you don't even know me. I've never met him in my life.
At the time, the couple was living in a camper, but today, Calvin and Kathy are living in their new home. They moved in November.
Not quite done all the way done inside on some of the cosmetic stuff, but I really like it.
Calvin's newest project is building a deck out the back door. And when asked about his thoughts on the last year,
I don't want to do another one like this last one. It was learning, and it makes you appreciate more what you do have. It did that to me.
a Sullivan couple who lost their home not far from here credits meteorologist Jesse Walker with potentially saving their lives with his on-air warnings. Jesse met with Pat and Dee Fulford recently and takes a look at the safety measures they now have in their new home. Julie Hendricks reports.
Dee and Pat Fulford welcomed Jesse Walker to their new home. This Sullivan County family lost their original home a year ago.
The house was built in 1850. They didn't think it would ever blow up. It looked like it blew up.
That old house felt safe in 2023 on a day when severe weather was likely.
You have been talking all week about what the chances were for very severe weather, so I was paying attention.
On March 31st, Dee wanted her neighbors to know where they could go.
We lived in one of the only houses that actually had a basement, and so I had sent a text message out to everybody in the neighborhood that said I'm leaving the door unlocked and the lights on. When
the tornado actually hit, only Dee and Pat made it to that basement.
They didn't have time to get here. You know, it was, it happened so quick. My daughter had called and said, "Are you in the basement?" And I said, "No, why?" And she said, "Mom, there's a tornado on the ground headed your way."
The tornado will be on the southwest corner of the storm, and that's what we're looking at. And if it's moving northeast, this would put Sullivan in a direct line for the potential tornado there as it crosses over.
You were talking about the debris. Got him up and I said, Jesse said, "There's debris on the radar." We opened the deck door and he said, "Oh my gosh, that's a tornado." So we literally took off running and barely made it.
15 seconds later, the tornado was gone.
And when it was over, it was just as quiet could be. Then the rain started a little bit.
I am not a materialistic person. Things don't really matter to me, but when you're standing there looking at everything you own gone, it was very surreal. And I don't know that I'll ever get over that. We were able to save my grandpa's rocking chair over there, my Hope chest from when I graduated from high school, and my grandpa had made standing dresser, and that we were able to save it.
Today, the Fulfords have a safe room in their new home designed with severe weather in mind. And having survived a tornado, they will always heed warnings and be weather aware on days when severe weather threatens.
The tornado on March 31st last year was a long track tornado that came through our viewing area, starting way down here south of St. Marie, Illinois, and then tracking up to the northeast pretty quickly, actually, at about 50 to 55 miles per hour, passing just south of Robinson, between Robinson and Palestine, and then just north of there, crossing over the river, actually very close to Merrim, Indiana, and of course coming across the south side of Sullivan. It lifted after it got past Sullivan, but it did come back down and touch down in Owen County County at McCormick's Creek State Park. So a long track tornado that came through the area. Here's some of the facts on this. In Crawford County, it was a very high-end, what we call EF3 at 165-mile-per-hour winds. I'll talk more about that in a second. Unfortunately, we lost 3 people in Crawford County, and there were 8 people injured. When it moved into Sullivan County, it maintained its intensity as an EF3, only down slightly on the winds at 155 miles per hour, and again 3 people killed in Sullivan County. When it came back down in Owen County, still an EF3 at 155 mile per hour winds and 2 people killed at McCormick's Creek State Park. So it maintained its intensity for that entire track. And that track, by the way, was unusual because it was a long track tornado, 42 miles on the ground, and unfortunately 8 people lost their lives in our viewing area that night. That outbreak, though, the whole storm outbreak, there were 147 tornadoes. That's the 3rd most ever in U.S. history. Only between 2011 and 1974, we call those super outbreak years. 26 people were killed, 218 injured, and $5.5 billion in damage. Major outbreak. I wanted to talk about the wind on that, though, because the wind on that tornado was estimated at 165 miles per hour. 166 would have been an EF4, so this was very close to an EF4 or a high-end EF3 tornado. How rare is a 5? In Indiana and Illinois, it's been a while. In Illinois, we haven't seen a 5 tornado in 34 years. In the state of Indiana, it has been 50 years. We're coming up on the anniversary of that, and for the entire nation, it's very rare. We haven't seen one in over a decade, so 5s are rare. Unfortunately, that was a 3 that hit this area and, of course, left a lasting impression on the valley.
Children in Sullivan are back to counting numbers and counting dance steps. 2 small businesses in this neighborhood were destroyed by the tornado. But Jen Thompson tells us this story of resilience.
The red metal building that once stood on Ohio Street in Sullivan housed 2 businesses owned by a mother and a daughter. Cross Your Heart Kids Club Academy and Studio 3-4, both like a second home to hundreds of kids who call Sullivan home. But after that deadly tornado, all that was left was the original foundation. Tyra Pirtle owns the dance studio and couldn't believe her eyes after returning from vacation to the damage.
It's hard to believe. We're just kind of in a whirlwind of emotions.
Jody Minks and Debbie Loudermilk own the Kids Club.
Where we're standing right now is the foundation. So
and the Lord is our foundation. I will speak the truth right now. The Lord is our foundation.
And he'll build it again.
Their faith never wavering, certain they'd once again be serving the kids of Sullivan County, even with the odds stacked against them.
After tornadoes, we found out that only 40 to 60% of small businesses reopen. So that's just kind of a big number to shove in your face.
Yet against all odds, they persevered. While the storm may have torn their building apart, their passion for children was never silenced. 1 year later, they're dancing.
When we first started back, there were lots of hugs. I cried the first couple of days just because I was happy to be back.
And studying.
It's a blessing. When we first was, open, we first opened up in the first day of preschool here. Driving here, just still seeing the rebuilding, and there's still some trees and some devastation, and I'm just thank you Lord. This is a miracle.
But more than anything, they're learning that with faith you can overcome anything.
But we just thank God every day for giving us the opportunity to be back up and running. And we both have businesses that involve kids and involve families. So we not only do it for us, but we know that there's a lot of little lives and a lot of little hearts that are at stake. And, they're counting on us.
It's just all worked out, and we're so blessed because he's so good. It's just really amazing how many people came to help and reach out in a time when it's needed, and it just gives you a different appreciation, and you don't take stuff for granted because just little things mean a lot.
Jen Thompson reporting.
I'm standing in front of the Sullivan VFW. Now, the old one was in this exact same location, of course, destroyed by the tornado. As you can now see, though, the new one under construction. According to the Senior Vice Commander, Evan Hamilton, this one double the size of the old one. Besides a large bar room, they're also going to have a big banquet center that they hope the community will enjoy. Hamilton says the building will be very inviting and open to the public on Fridays and Saturdays. Meanwhile, the helicopter that used to be on a perch here, of course, also destroyed by the tornado, but another helicopter will replace it. Now, construction is expected to be complete by the end of April or the 1st of May. They do hope to hold their ceremonies for Memorial Day here in May. A dress made in part from fabric recovered from the tornado that hit Sullivan went up for auction. Ashley Anderson is a longtime Sullivan County resident. The avid sewer used clothing that she recovered from a friend's property to create this dress that was auctioned off. The recovered curtain, t-shirt, and other material were used for the bodice and lining of the dress. The money raised from the auction went to help a family in need. She says the dress holds special significance.
I didn't want to jazz it up a lot towards the regular prom style with the rhinestones and the bling and everything else. I wanted it to kind of stand out and stand on its own, and for you to look at it and realize that there's something going on with it and that there's a story behind it.
Ashley said the dress sold for $150. She also says someone made a separate donation to help out as well.
I got to say thanks to all of my Facebook followers for this segment on the tornado. I put out a request on my Facebook page asking for any odd or unusual pictures or even video, and I got a tremendous response. So I want to go over some of that for you. First of all, Megan Lovelace sent me this. This was south of Palestine, and you can see the flashes here, the power flashes as the tornado was moving through. So that's some of the video we got there. And this was also, Megan, here, and you can kind of see the tornado. It was a little hard to see because it was nighttime. It was kind of rain wrapped. But again, a little video of the tornado. And this is a great picture here from Kara. This was about 7 miles south of Merrim. What we did was we just captured that frame with the lightning in the background. But you can clearly see the tornado. Again, it was very difficult to see because it was nighttime and had rain wrapped around it. Here's another still picture. Raymond sent me this. This was near the Crawford County Airport at about 9:16 Illinois time, but you can clearly see the tornado there on the ground. And this video here by Elizabeth, this was shot near Palestine, Illinois, and probably some of the best video we have. It's a little hard to see at times, but if you look really close, right in here, you've got the tornado. All of these pictures you saw were before the tornado actually hit Sullivan, as it was coming out of Crawford County, Illinois, and into Sullivan County, Indiana. So some of the odd things the tornado did. Kendall sent me this. This is a saw blade driven into a tree. This was from Jackie. This was from Sullivan, Indiana, where a piece of wood was basically shoved through a window casing at that house there. Jeff sent me this southwest of Robinson, Illinois. The bathroom, you see the bathroom, but this is a glass shower door still standing and unbroken. Tornadoes do some very bizarre things sometimes. This is interesting. This was a paper from the Crawford County Airport, okay? But it was actually found in Spencer, 50 miles away. Picked this up and carried it 50 miles off to the northeast. Somebody over in Spencer, Indiana, found that paper from the Crawford County Airport. Unusual to see this. We call this ground scouring. Generally, the tornado has to be an EF3 or higher, and you start to see the spiral motion in the field. This was taken by Gregory Miller, and you can kind of see it here, and it goes through these trees and out in this area as well. Interesting, Gregory took those pictures. This was Gregory's house, and we have it circled here where they came out of the rubble. They had to dig themselves out of the house. So his house, of course, was demolished there in Sullivan. Dee Fulford, we've got her in the show as well. This was a picture from their area, and you can see the tremendous damage that was basically caused by all of the strong winds coming through those areas. Here's a saw blade. This was actually driven into a car, so thank you very much for that picture as well. I kind of zoomed in for you to see that a little bit better, but just some interesting things tornadoes do. Here's part of a truck. Haley sent me this. Crawford County, Illinois. This was the helicopter there from Sullivan, you know, with the VFW. We heard about that, that was blown off of the pillar that it was on. This was a farm receipt in Sullivan, Indiana, which was found 35 miles away over in Owen County. So another very odd thing it did. Just some pictures from tornado damage here in Sullivan where it blew out a lot of the windows of the houses. This was a bathroom in Sullivan where the lights up here were still on the wall and were still unbroken. Believe it or not, the house was gone, but the lights were still there unbroken. And last, I got to show you this. Kendra sent me this picture. This dog was picked up and blown into the neighbor's house. The house collapsed on the dog, but luckily, 3 weeks later, the dog was doing fine. So some good stories there as well. Thank you to all of my Facebook followers for those pictures from the tornado and some of the weird things that the tornado did.
I'm Nicole Christine.
And I'm Mike Tank. Here in Robinson, a lot of progress has been made in the recovery efforts. The tornado hit several areas, including right here at the Crawford County Airport, and then the buildings belonging to Lincoln Trail College, just to the west of here.
A day or so after the tornado, the scope of the devastation was very apparent at the Crawford County Airport. The tornado came from the southwest and destroyed 5 buildings and damaged or destroyed 19 planes. A total of about $4 million. Cody Yeager is on the airport board.
Yeah, I don't think it could have been more direct. It pretty well hit the terminal that was sitting right here, pretty much right in the center.
The task of cleaning up was daunting. Yeager says just getting to the airport was difficult. Power lines and debris were everywhere. But thanks to a community effort, the airport was eventually cleared.
We had hundreds of volunteers. It was amazing what this community did, volunteer-wise, just to come out and start cleaning up, across all of the fields, across the runways, everything.
Just a mile away, the telecom program of Lincoln Trail College was housed along Highway 1440 East. The concrete structure took a direct hit, and according to officials, caused approximately $6 million in damage.
Obviously, everything there was lost. That building wasn't safe. We went ahead and took that building down as quickly as we were able to. But there was a lot of projects and tools and equipment and things like that were in there for our broadband telecom program.
The main campus was spared, but Ford says it could have been so much worse. That evening, a performance of South Pacific was going on in the Student Center. The tornado hit only about a mile from the main campus.
You know, it's terrifying to think of what could have been if this would have tracked in a little bit of a different path.
Today, the site of the telecom building devastation is cleared. In fact, the college sold the property. The telecom program is now housed in temporary facilities north of the main campus. The plan is to build a new $12 million facility. Ford believes the college will come out even better than before the tornado.
It's going to be a state-of-the-art facility for several of our programs, and it's going to be something really good.
The same sense of optimism surrounds the airport. The airport can accept landings, but it is not fully operational. New buildings have been erected, and eventually a new terminal will replace this trailer. It's a long process, but Yeager believes the end result will be a tremendous benefit to the area.
We'll definitely be better than what we were. With the grant money that we're receiving, our terminal will be much larger and nicer amenities. We'll be able to bring in more business here. We've got 3 different flight schools that will now be operating out of our terminal with the space that we have.
Well, we have just been so touched by all of the stories that people have shared with us over the past year. And last summer, we decided we wanted to lend a hand and a shovel.
Yeah, last June we chose a special Founders Day project to help those affected by the tornado.
We planted 100 trees in Crawford and Sullivan counties, and the first trees that we planted were on the property of Kim Decker. Her family lost their home in the tornado. We checked back in with Decker recently to see how the trees and her home rebuild were progressing. The 4 trees planted on her property are set to bloom later this spring. The Deckers lived out of a camper for several months after the tornado. While there is still work to do out in their yard, the Deckers are now set up in their new home and have included a special furnishing as a reminder of the storm.
We live on the main highway, and there's the big telephone poles that the tornado took down. And so my husband took one of those poles and took it to his dad's sawmill and sawed out our mantle out of one of the telephone poles that the tornado took down. It means a lot because it shows we have overcome that storm, and it's not going to stop us. And thank goodness for the strength that we've been given by the Lord to get us through this last year.
The tornado created a call to action that spanned the impacted area and beyond. From neighbors comforting neighbors to corporations calling volunteer groups to action, the Crawford County community soon learned that any helping hand is important in times of recovery and rebuilding.
A few seconds. That's how fast it took for a tornado to rip through Robinson resident Dan Strau's home last March as his family took shelter in their basement.
We were all laying on the ground and the ceiling started breaking and caving in, and all the water pipes broke. So we didn't realize how bad it was until those few seconds were over, and then we got up and saw that everything was gone.
When dawn broke, the family and the larger Crawford County community went into recovery mode, and many stepped in to help.
The next day we had volunteers show up from his helping hands, showed up, and they said they were just driving by and stopped and started clearing the roadways. And then a lot of people from Marathon and Cinco showed up and helped clean a lot of the brush and stuff just so we could access our property and where our house actually was.
Strau is the security coordinator for Marathon's Robinson Refinery, and his wife Jody works there as an advanced practice clinician. Staff at Marathon were quick to action after the storm, with over 100 volunteers logging just under 1,400 hours, with many additional volunteer hours not even officially tracked. One of the big community projects for Marathon was helping to bring the Neal Pit wildlife habitat back to life after it was left destroyed by the tornado.
We had a group of employees that was kind of their priority, and they worked together to get that back up and working. So now we have all of our shelters back up, and we were able to host our first Nature Day this past fall.
Lindsay Eppolito said witnessing the community come together to rebuild over the past year has shown the strength of Crawford County.
The response that happened in our community just goes to show that we can be ready for anything that's thrown our way. We're a strong community, and we've got great employers in the community that are there to back us up and help us out whenever the time's needed.
And Strau said he is forever grateful for the fellowship his family experienced during such a trying time.
Everybody's willing to help, and my wife and I just keep talking about we can't wait to do something to help pay them back.
Well, thank you so much for joining us as we look back on the impact of the tornado and the incredible journey of recovery that happened in the Wabash Valley.
We want to thank all the emergency personnel and officials who responded in the tornado's aftermath. And as we say goodbye, we want to honor and remember the victims of that night.
Thank you for watching this special presentation of After the Storm, brought to you commercial-free by the Marathon Refinery.